An interesting riddle, Commander. You put your right hand in, you put your right hand out, you put your whole self in, and you turn yourself about. You do the hokey pokey, you give a little shout. That's what it's all about.
You try and kiss me and I'll break your arm.
Hello and welcome to Who Are You, a Babylon 5 watchcast hosted by two friends getting to know each other as they watch one of their favorite shows from their childhood. I'm Xhafer.
And I'm Laura.
And today, Laura, I get to ask you, who are you?
Who are you?
Who are you?
Do you know who I am?
Well, I have sort of alluded to this in my first conversation that we had, I think, where I told you about being a fan of Kurt Vonnegut, but I'm also just a general bookworm.
Okay.
So I have more books than I should, for one thing.
Not true.
Well, there's some things that I was going through. I was actually going through the shelf and I was like, this book of the AICPA codification that was once theoretical and is now fact and has been, reissued a few times. I should probably just get rid of that. That is not useful anymore. Old textbooks, things like that. I'm a hoarder and I still have them, even if some of the information is not relevant. So I'm trying to get that part of my collection down. But
okay.
In general, I became a bookworm as a child, as most of us do. And sci-fi was a big avenue into that for me.
Same.
Yeah. Read a lot of the Star Wars books.
Me too.
The ones Timothy Zahn and.
Yep. X-Wing series. I read all those. I read a bunch of there was a real penchant for Star Wars trilogies in novel form, but I read a ton of those.
Yeah. I read whatever I could get my hands on in the, Tahlequah Public Library. So maybe not as many. But the Star Wars books, there were a lot of Star Trek books.
I've read a ton of Star Trek books. I'm like 15 or 16 books behind right now. But at one point, I was current with Star Trek books.
Nice.
From the Titan relaunch, which was the post-Nemesis books.
Okay.
I had about maybe 25 or 30 of them that I had read and donated / gave to a friend of the pod, Austin, who's commented a couple of times on things. Presumably he listens. But he lives not terribly far from me, and there was this Star Trek book group that we were both in where I had commented about just having a ton of them that I was trying to get rid of just to make space on my bookshelf.
Yeah. I read a lot of the Deep Space Nine books that were out because Deep Space Nine was like my favorite series. And then I kind of branched out when I got, into high school and got into the fantasy books as well. We had a lot more sci-fi books around our house because my dad is, being a scientist, much more interested in that than fantasy. We never had any of the fantasy series. We didn't even have, Lord of the Rings was the one that his generation would have all been reading in college, and he didn't even have those. So when I found those, it was like, ooh, something new. So lots of sci-fi, lots of fantasy. And then the post-apocalypse is also a big one that I've read a lot of. And some of the old ones too. The first one I read that was kind of that post-apocalypse was Alas, Babylon. And maybe I was interested in it because it had the word Babylon in the name. But I think it's one of the really foundations of the post-apocalypse genre because it was written in that we've used nuclear bombs now. What the hell do we do with that? That writer grappling with that. And On the Beach was another one that was that time. We all thought we were going to kill ourselves with nuclear weapons for a long time. And now we've realized we could do it all kinds of ways. And maybe it won't be us that does it. Maybe it'll be the Earth, or maybe it'll be the sun. Who knows?
Yeah, something.
So, lots of nonfiction these days. I listen to a lot of audiobooks too, because once I got out of college, my time sort of got away from me and I wasn't reading as much. A lot of my travel when I worked travel was driving. So that's when I hit the audiobooks really hard.
Yeah.
So that's when I hit kind of nonfiction because our library has a very extensive audiobook collection. I use the libraries app. Everyone's always like, oh, get Audible. This is not an Audible commercial because your library is free, folks. And your library probably has an app that you can use. So save yourself some money.
My library is part of I think it's all of the libraries in the Metro Detroit area are like grouped together, and their app is awesome. It had all kinds of stuff on it.
Ebooks, audiobooks.
Yeah.
It's great. Check your library before giving more money to Jeff Bezos, guys.
Yeah, he don't need it.
But so for my birthday that was, recent, I decided, hey, I want to go to the bookstore and buy myself some books.
Yeah.
So we hit up Barnes and Noble, and then I don't know if this chain is national, but do you guys have half price books there?
No, I don't think we do. I think there might be one.
Okay. So they're like a
nowhere near
used
me.
bookstore mostly. They take in used stuff, or they take stuff that other bookstores haven't been able to sell and they sell it cheap, right?
Okay.
So when we went to Half Price Books, I was looking mostly to see like this fantasy series that I just listened to on the library, if I could find the books, because it
What
seems
fantasy
like
series?
it's The Dagger and the Coin by Daniel Abram.
Nope. Okay.
He's one half of the writer who wrote The Expanse.
Okay. I've got a pile of those.
So I couldn't find the books, but my husband was poking around and he found me a Babylon 5 set. So this is show and tell. I got it here. I think I sent you a picture of the cover, but it was actually $50, you guys. It's a very good condition.
It's hefty.
Yeah. So
it's a trilogy in one book, right? It's 3.
It's the Psychor trilogy. $50. You can't find it cheaper on Half Price Books website, or I think Aaron might have checked Amazon too, and because it's out of print and it's the the trilogy, it's about $50 everywhere. Very good condition. And I was like, oh, I remember reading these books from the library. There's Dark Genesis, Deadly Relations, and Final Reckoning, and they're by J. Gregory Keyes. I remember reading them at the library. I remember them being good, or at least to 13-year-old me, whose taste may have been questionable. So I was like, yeah, this is a good birthday present to me. I'll spend $50 on this. And I was like, I remember the paperbacks. They were much smaller, and that same color palette that all the sci-fi books were in the 90s. And my husband's like, yeah, they seem familiar to me too, but I don't know where I would have seen them. Later that day, he's poking around on my bookshelf. And
you already had them.
I have them. I have the 3 paperbacks. Obviously, I haven't touched them in a long time.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, since I have 3 paperbacks, that maybe, have you read the Psychor trilogy?
I have not read a single Babylon 5 book.
Oh, you want to, right?
I would love to.
So I will mail you my paperbacks.
Oh, thank you.
And we can read these together, and maybe we could do a book club.
Yeah. A book club episode. That'll be fun.
They're pretty good condition too. I don't know when I picked these up, honestly. I have no idea. But I think it would be fun, and we can get some more Psychor lore and history out of them.
Yeah.
To enjoy. So
I'm here for it.
That's me. I'm a bookworm, and I have double copies of things.
I have purchased extra copies of books that I knew were not going to be reprinted before.
Yeah.
Just to have like a backup or one to give away, because I don't loan people books. I give people books.
Yeah.
I've always been of that mindset. And you should,
because I am the person that gets loaned books and I never give them back.
Yeah.
I apologize to everyone who's ever loaned me a book.
Yeah, if I am loaning a book, there's like, I need you to get this back to me because this copy was like my dad's or something, there's sentimental value attached.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you give books. You don't loan books.
That's smart.
What else is smart is a handful of characters in this episode of Babylon 5
Are you
That's
being
actually not
serious?
true.
Okay.
No, that's actually not true at all. I just needed a segue. I saw one and I reached for it, and I should have thought about it more. But we do have season 1, episode 19 of Voice in the Wilderness, part 1.
Mm.
And this was originally planned as a 2-parter.
Mhm.
There was a request for a 2-parter in this season because the VHS sales of the Gathering movie apparently did so well in Europe,
Huh.
where the show wasn't airing, that they wanted to do another movie style 2-parter to put on a single VHS tape, because The Gathering was doing so much better than the other episodes. And they're like, oh, it's because they think it's a movie.
That's weird. Okay.
Yep. Thanks, Usenet Notes. Also, I found out that JMS wrote this while he was very sick. He doesn't remember if he wrote this as he in the process of getting very sick or as he was getting over being very sick.
Uh-huh.
And he has apparently, I found in the notes for this, no memory of writing The Quality of Mercy.
Wow.
He was so sick, and he wrote that at the peak of his illness.
Uh-huh.
And he wrote this either shortly before or shortly after.
Yeah. Poor guy.
Yeah.
I mean, if that was my work output when I was like super sick and couldn't remember it, I would be pretty pleased with myself. Like
3 episodes
very
of television.
decent. Yeah.
Theoretically 5, because there's the other side of it that he doesn't know which order he wrote them in.
Uh-huh.
So
yeah.
there's more in there somewhere.
Good on you, dude.
Yeah. We open on Space TSA, and I need you to scrub to the 9-second mark here.
Okay. I pulled this one up. 9 seconds. I'm seeing Drawl, our older Minbari.
Yep.
What else am I seeing?
In the background, an actual lizard person. I've never seen this type of alien in Babylon 5 before.
Yeah.
But that is straight up like a Gorn style lizard person.
Yeah. Maybe we had some leftover prosthetics from the Star Trek set.
Yeah.
Except a different studio, whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe we found their dumpster.
That happened a ton with TOS, and I think it was Lost in Space and Forbidden Planet.
Yeah.
We're all filmed on the same lots, I think is what it was.
We found their
Anyways,
dumpster.
an older Minbari comes through, meets a security detail, and gets taken to see Delenn.
Yeah, that was weird.
Oh, I figured that was just set up.
Yeah, I was like, is this guy waiting for him?
Yeah. Yeah, he's
Okay.
effectively holding the sign, only he's not holding this. He's like the
Okay.
guy holding the sign at the airport, but
Okay.
he's just not holding a sign.
I didn't read it that way. I read it like this is just some guy standing at Space TSA while looking for weapons, you know, and,
Yeah.
and you're like, take me to Delenn. And he's like, okay.
Yeah, sure.
But,
I'll take
okay.
you to the No, to just take you to the ambassador. No, that's not how this
Yeah,
goes.
this must be arranged. You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
But she didn't know he was coming. Isn't she surprised later? Isn't she like,
That doesn't
oh my
mean that
God.
like Lanier didn't know or that the Minbari
Oh,
government
okay.
didn't know.
Okay, all right. I'll sign off on it.
Yeah. I figure he made travel plans to the Minbari. He must have, because they don't have money.
Oh,
He had to have
yeah,
made plans
okay.
somehow. So the
Yeah.
Minbari government probably just handled it for him.
Yeah. Okay. But from moving on from that, we go back to CNC and Sinclair and Ivanova are talking about launching a shuttle to observe some strange seismic readings that they're beginning from Epsilon 3. And I
Yep.
don't remember if we've mentioned the name of the planet before.
We had not up until this point.
Oh, you looked it up.
I did.
That's your I looked it up face.
I did look it up.
Okay, so we find out though that Epsilon 3 is definitely the planet that they are around. That's our orbit. They've got to send this geology team down there to investigate, see what's going on. But Sinclair has to run off to be a diplomat instead, and Ivanova's in charge of watching these guys do their job.
And Sinclair goes and he runs into Talia waiting outside of a lift. And she's just like, Garibaldi is always waiting for me whenever I take this lift. And he's like, that's ridiculous. And door opens and he's there.
Yeah. Was this just a joke for Jerry Doyle and Andrea Thompson, just for their benefit?
I feel like it's a joke, but it also is a little bit of setup for later when he goes to Talia, just to kind of like establish that they've got this kind of tense, not quite friendly relationship. Yeah. Because if you don't have this scene there, you might not remember, because the last time we've seen them interact was like 10 episodes ago.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah.
We see Dr. Tasaki's shuttle, that's the lead geologist on this team, entering the atmosphere of Epsilon 3. But a strange energy discharge damages the ship.
Just blasting.
Anyway, I started blasting.
Yep. Shoots out of the planet's surface.
Yep.
And
loses control of the shuttle Athene.
Yeah.
When we come back, we find that most of the systems are fried and they need help getting out of orbit. We cut to Sinclair's office where Londo is day drinking.
Yeah. He day drinks in meetings a lot.
What looks like a grasshopper, of all things, for a business meeting.
Weird flex, but okay.
Yeah. Ivanova meets the survey crew once they get back and comments that the planet below is believed to be stable, safe, and uninhabited, and it is now none of those.
Yeah. I would be a little upset too. But Dr. Tasaki's pretty chill about it. He's like, I'm going to go call my wife, tell her about it.
She loves puzzles. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cut back to Sinclair's office where he has successfully negotiated a trade treaty between the Centauri and the Minbari. Londo notes how pleasant this can be when the other party is cooperative.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get a little bit about the nature of anger.
Yeah.
Because he's talking about Jakar's anger for him. Londo insists that Narn will hate the Centauri through the heat death of the universe.
Yes.
If all the Narn focused their hate at once, and it would turn the homeworld into a ball of ash. The hate is cyclical. They hate us, so we hate them, so they hate us.
Yeah. And Sinclair is like, well, you could break the cycle and you could not respond in kind. And Londo says,
there's a natural law. Physics tells us that for every action, there must be an equal and opposite reaction. They hate us, we hate them, they hate us back. And so, here we are, victims of mathematics.
It's a very nihilistic worldview. It makes me a little sad.
Yeah. At CNC, we find out the pulse is a beacon of some kind, which they then don't mention again for the rest of the episode.
Yeah. We find out it's a beacon, and we also get a quick question from Ivanova. She's asking Sinclair if he's heard anything about Mars. There's been no word about the colony in the daily reports, and apparently this could be a normal thing if they were doing some sort of military exercise, but they didn't get any warning about that. But Sinclair shrugs it off, says it's probably a glitch, and wishes her a good night.
Yeah. Drawl makes his way to Delenn, where he asks her for the third principle of sentient life, which is self-sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
I looked, the other two are self-awareness and self-betterment.
Oh, yeah.
So this is the three things required to be considered sentient life by the Minbari.
So I guess that's how the feeder from, I'm blanking on the name of the episode.
The Quality of Mercy.
Oh, it was the Quality of Mercy. Yeah. So the feeder must not clear these hurdles, right? So even though it could speak English somehow, it did not have the capacity for self-sacrifice, perhaps.
Yeah, or self-betterment.
Yeah. It was definitely self-aware, it seemed. It knew it was hungry.
Yeah.
So we learned from that, the pop quiz, that he's one of her former teachers, now friends, and she's very happy to see him and invites him in her quarters.
Yep. We cut to Sinclair's quarters for a moment where we find out what's up with Mars. It is an open revolt and revolution.
Yeah.
He's then visited by the ghost of Christmas Past, who asked him to help.
Help me.
Yes.
And he and Ivanova talk it over during breakfast.
Yeah, we find out Sinclair was born on Mars. I don't think that had been mentioned before either.
I don't think it was either.
Okay. I wondered if I just missed that, but it seemed like a new fact.
Knowing what happens much later in the show, I wonder if that was set up for plot in like season 4.
Ivanova apparently had family there, but she doesn't anymore. But I think we've mentioned before that Garibaldi had spent quite a bit of time on Mars. Yes, we did, because we just had TKO, of course.
We had talked a little bit about Mars, but we get a lot more about Garibaldi's time on Mars in this episode.
Yes, exactly. So apparently he's taking it very hard. We haven't seen him yet, besides smirking in an elevator. But Sinclair almost tells Ivanova about the ghost of Christmas Past, but he dismisses himself, thinking he must have just been tired. And I wondered at this moment, I had another one of those moments where I thought about what we know now about Michael O'Hare. And I wondered if that was hard. You know,
it might have been really hard for him. Yeah.
I don't know. You know, we obviously don't know personal details of his illness, but I don't think hallucination is out of the realm of possibility for him.
No, I believe hallucination was quite in the realm of things he was experiencing from what I've heard.
Yeah. Having to act that or act around it when it's so personal and it's happening to you must be difficult.
For sure. After this, I need you to go ahead and scrub to 1342.
Hold, please. Is that a bong?
That's what I have in my notes. That's a bong. That's 100% a bong. Look at that thing. That's a bong. Yeah.
It's mysterious Minbari thing, but
Yeah.
that's
And they're
a
going to
bong,
drink the
right?
water, which I haven't had bong water personally in my life.
Is that a thing? Do people do that?
I know I had a roommate in college who accidentally got a little, and it was a
Oh.
scene because it was terrible.
Mm.
But that is not my set of interests.
You think that the props department was having a good laugh this
They
whole
must
time?
have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did this on purpose.
Yeah.
Go props guy.
Dral tells Delenn he left Mimbar because he feels something is wrong there. The growing rift between the religious and warrior castes. And he's come to tell Delenn that he's going to the sea.
Woo, so dramatic.
What Lord of the Rings bullshit is this?
Yeah. Minbari are space elves. I mean,
Dral's like, I'm just going to go be happy with Sam and Gandalf, and the elves will be there. Just going to the sea.
yeah.
The
And
sea of stars.
it's very poetic.
It's very poetic. It's very Minbari religious cast.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they've got poetry on lock. Except they haven't.
And jokes aside, I really like this concept and idea. I think it's fun. I think it's an interesting cultural thing to do.
Yeah.
But I'm going to make my jokes.
Yeah. He says he's going to look for a place in the stars where he can be of service before he dies. So he's not just, the sea isn't exactly a total metaphor for death. It's more like, I'm going to go out into the wilderness and find something to be of use at. But
yeah, there's someone who needs me out somewhere, and I just have to find them.
And Delenn you can tell she's crushed. She knows that she's not going to see him again after he leaves. And but he tells her to be glad that he's found his purpose and you should be happy for me. And I'm in a better place.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
It vibes a lot with the whole true seeker thing too.
It does. Yeah. I like that.
We cut to Garibaldi, who's trying to reach someone on Mars, but can't get through. Ivanova sets up some plot about the Star Furies not being able to help in the atmosphere. That totally won't come back later. Sinclair just cold shoulders the shit out of Londo.
Yeah.
If you find something interesting, you'll tell me. No. Go away.
Smart, though. Very smart.
Yeah. The whole station will know in 10 minutes.
Right.
Garibaldi finds Talia to ask for help, and he gives us that sweet, sweet backstory. Before B5, he was stationed on Mars. He was involved with Lisa Hampton, who they were so serious, he had thought about proposing. He had asked her to move to Babylon 5 with him when he got the assignment. But they haven't spoken since he left for the station.
Yeah, they had a big fight. And he mentions that he was fired from 4 previous jobs before he got this Babylon 5 offer. And he was like, I have to do this, or no one is going to, no one else is going to give me another chance. And
yeah.
And he does take the blame for the big fight that they had before he left for Babylon 5. He believes it to be his fault. But now even though he hasn't spoken to her since, he can't sleep, not knowing if she's safe or not during these riots.
He reveals he knows about a classified Psychor training center on Mars.
Yeah. That's maybe a card you shouldn't play yet, but okay.
Yeah. And he's just like, what are you talking about? What? And he's just like, cut the bullshit. And she's just like, how do you know? And so he asked Talia to help reach out to that base to try and put him in touch with Lisa, possibly.
Yeah, she says no promises, but I will try.
The survey crew gets straight missiled.
Yeah, because they dropped too low in the atmosphere for the Star Furies to follow.
Yep.
Against orders.
Yep, and Ivanova saves them and asks them to commit to memory the Babylon 5 mantra.
Ivanova is always right. I will listen to Ivanova. I will not ignore Ivanova's recommendations. Ivanova is God. And if this ever happens again, Ivanova will personally rip your lungs out. Babylon Control out.
Yeah, I love it. I need that mantra on my wall at work.
After comps are off, she apologizes to God. I didn't mean that last one.
Yeah, that's cute. That's cute. We know she's got a good Jewish girl in there somewhere. Yeah. While they're debriefing, Dr. Tasaki tells Sinclair and Ivanova that they were able to pinpoint the origin of the missiles, at least. He zooms in on the TV in Sector 14. There's a canyon down there that's 5 miles below the surface, there's a canyon, and then the origin of the fire was 5 miles below the surface. Excuse me. It turns to Ivanova and he says, given that this is a serious threat and a potential first contact, we need to go down there personally to investigate this situation. And I want you to just reflect for a second on Babylon 5 run by Michael Garibaldi, because he seems to be the next in line, right?
So I think Garibaldi is actually a non-commissioned officer.
Oh, so okay, who is next in line?
I would think, I think Franklin by rank.
Okay.
But it would probably be one of the lieutenants in CNC.
Yeah. Well, they'll have to bring back Colonel Ari Benzane because both Ivanova and Sinclair could be killed on this mission. It's like
that'd make for a weird rest of the show.
Like, I get it. Sci-fi shows, we have our limitations and we want to see our main characters do something, but it's fun to pause every now and again and be like, what if everyone died on this mission? Who's in charge?
Meanwhile, Lando finds Garibaldi drinking at the bar. He's drinking water. And he recollects the story of how he met his third wife. He was upset. He was going to see the most exotic of Centauri dancers whenever he possibly could. He had a really bad day at work, whatever the hell that means for Lando.
Right.
And she told him that whatever it is, it can't be that bad. And then she kissed him. And then Lando looks at Garibaldi and goes, whatever it is, it can't be that bad. And then Garibaldi goes, if you kiss me, I'm going to break your arm. But it does cheer up Garibaldi, and Lando goes to further merry-make around the station, as is his job.
I loved this part, especially because he talks about how he ended up marrying her and that she had a voice that could curdle milk.
Lando? Yes, dear, Lando!
And I know we're going to beat Lando's wives later. I remember that. And I seem to remember one of them having a voice. So I'm ready. I'm here for it. I want to out one of Lando's wives and figure out which one is the
dancer.
Right.
We'll have to remember when we get to that episode.
Oh, I'll remind you. Don't worry.
Lando leaves, and then he is also visited by Jacob Marley. Ivanova and Sinclair head down, dodging the planet's defenses, and they find a landing pad that their ship conveniently fits on, and then they head out on foot.
Yeah. We've got breathers on, I think, because it's mostly carbon dioxide in there.
Yep.
The sensors haven't detected any signs of life, but we're going to go look. Back on the station, Talia does get someone at the Mars Psychor facility on the TV. The administrator refuses to help Garibaldi because that would confirm the presence of the facility for him, and they don't want to do that. It is supposed to be a secret. But Talia talks her into trying to find out if Lise Hampton is listed among the casualties. And she again says, no promises. I'll do what I can.
Meanwhile, on the planet, Sinclair and Ivanova find very old dead aliens and traps.
You triggered my trap card!
They get past the traps and they find the Great Machine. We don't know that's what its name is yet, but that's what the name of this thing is. It's the Great Machine.
TM.
Back on the station, Delenn is taking Drawl around and introduces him to Lando. Lando mentions he's studying the Earthers and finds them contradictory. Delenn confirms humanity can be a mess of contradictions. He mentions astonishing symphonies, and then everyone sings their kids the Hokey Pokey. And he's been trying to figure out what the Hokey Pokey means for the last week.
Is this how you learned the Hokey Pokey? Just curious.
No, it felt different, but it's also in the future, and it's also Lando.
I was like, this isn't how I learned the hokey pokey, but then I wondered, are there regional differences in the hokey pokey? Like,
Maybe.
someone has probably written a dissertation on this. We'll have to. Well, I'm sure we'll hear from them. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Tweet me. Whoever wrote your dissertation on this, you find me and let me know. Garibaldi is pacing around CNC, noting Ivanova and Sinclair have been gone for over 2 hours when Talia comes in with the news. Psychor couldn't check the casualty or fatality list, but she was not on the list of survivors. He convinces himself that she's okay. Just like, okay, well, she's a survivor. She's fine. Whatever. I'm not worried about that. If she's not confirmed dead, then she's fine.
Yeah, sure.
And then comms are reestablished to the planet briefly. Then the ghost comes back as they find them. And then they wander around the facility a bit more. And they find that the ghost is not just a ghost, but a person. And he's hooked up to a Dan Brown wet dream. Because, listener, if you didn't watch the episode, it's very Vitruvian Man. The famous Leonardo da Vinci. I'm explaining my joke because I'm nervous it didn't land. To Dan Brown writing the Da Vinci Code. It's I got humor.
Yeah. I thought of Operation, kind of. I don't know why I thought of Operation, but I did. And
there's like tubes sticking into him and stuff.
Man, this show loves tubes, don't it?
The internet, it's a series of tubes.
This show loves its tubes. They've just got a giant bin of tubes somewhere, and they're just like, we need the prop department, just throw some tubes on it.
Spray paint them up, it'll be fine.
They pull the alien out because the alien is dying, and they head back up to B5. As they do, a large ship is coming through the jump gate to be continued.
There were so many moments right here in this last, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes that it was like, no, it must have been 5 to 10 minutes that I was like, oh, this is where it's going to be. Oh, where's my to be continued,
Yeah.
And finally we got it here. That was good. I enjoyed that because,
it's dramatic, and maybe you want to watch the next episode. But
sure
I didn't. Not yet. I will, but I haven't yet.
Yeah.
Well, normally I'd say let's give this episode a rating, but I think it's unfair to rate part 1 without watching part 2.
Okay, good point. Yeah. I mean, I'm on the edge of my butt, like I'm ready.
Yeah. You'll get a
for
rating
part 2.
next week, listeners, as a combined 2-part VHS movie.
Yeah, this is your cliffhanger, listener. You have to stay to find out how many Babylons a Voice in the Wilderness gets.
Which next episode, of course, is going to be A Voice in the Wilderness Part 2, Season 1, Episode 20. Sinclair and the Babylon 5 crew become involved in a political struggle for control of a planet that contains revolutionary super technology.
So we're going to wrap up all the loose ends from this episode, but add in a whole bunch of more material, apparently.
We'll see. Yeah.
I don't think we've got any hints that we're going to struggle over this from this first episode. So that's very interesting.
It's true. Political struggle, nonetheless.
Yeah.
Someone else is going to claim that planet that Babylon 5 is around. We'll see.
Oh, you know what? Maybe we did get a hint of it because Londo wants to know if there's anything important down there.
Yeah. Who knows? I don't know who's... I assume Babylon 5 is the edge of human space, but that's an assumption.
Yeah.
Might be in neutral territory,
Yeah.
That might be the point.
Right.
That would explain why them using it as a military staging ground, however many episodes ago, was such a big deal.
Yeah, that's true. Well, we'll join in next time for the exciting conclusion, I suppose.
Thank you to Jeremy Siegel for our lovely theme. You can find more music from him at jeremysiegel42.bandcamp.com.
Yes.
Ha.
We're going to have to just make a list of these so that I don't.
I can
forget.
never remember the Instagram for who did our art. I feel terrible saying that out
And
loud.
How can you forget Angry Duck Time Machine at Instagram?
I remembered the duck.
I want to hear where all the words came from. There's a story in those words.
There has to be.
Yeah. Well, one day we'll hear it, I'm sure.
And if you want to talk to us about anything or just shoot us an email and we'll read it in a mailbag segment, whoareyouB5@gmail.com.
See you next week, Internet.
See you next week.